In the 60s, nursery schools were not accommodating to international families.
The UN was, at that time, relatively new. It had been around for a while, but the buildings had been built, and there were a lot of people coming in to New York with young families. Now, if you were the ambassador, that was great. Everybody was happy to see you, and they met with limousines. But if you were the second secretary with a young wife and maybe 2 little children, they thought of put you out on your own.
They came from very simple cultures where the extended family looked after them and the children. And they come to New York and there's really nobody. Depression became a real problem.
The wife of an African diplomat at the UN was so despondent in New York City that she threw her young child out the window and then she jumped.
The older women in the diplomatic corps felt that they had to resolve this. They had to do something.
At the time, the sitting commissioner to the United Nations, Mrs. John Loeb, was truly concerned. And she had a very influential set of friends who got together and started a play group and an international community center.
Mrs. Loeb was an extraordinary woman. She was a giver. She was a shaker and a mover in New York City.
She was the one that really set up the school so that these women could bring their children and they themselves could learn to cope with the grocery stores and just cope with New York City.
When the school was first founded, there was no headmistress as such. Betsy Frothingham was working at a private school in Midtown Manhattan, and somebody identified her, approached her, and she said she would love to get involved. She was a wonderful communicator with children. She had a hand puppet, Mr. Ibu, and she would talk to the children through Mr. Ibu. And you know, there's something about hand puppets that get children and get some adults too.
Betsy O'Malley was the director when I first came as a volunteer. She was an extraordinary, bright, energetic woman who was very well connected socially.
Betsy was a person who wanted to see something through, and she wanted to see the school grow and make this approach available to more and more children.
Dear Miss Frothingham O'Malley, I am delighted to learn that your preschool program for the sons and daughters of our diplomatic friends continues to flourish. Indeed, the International Playgroup is recognized as a pacesetter in this important area. I know of no other group of youngsters of this impressionable age who come from more diverse backgrounds, yet somehow you have been able to cope with their individual problems and, more importantly, to instill in each a sense of eager expectancy for the learning process. This is a great achievement, and you have my profound admiration. Sincerely yours, Adlai Stevenson.
My relationship first was as a medical consultant in 1963. I came back to New York and met a very nice man. These young people he had heard about were doing a good job, but they need a medical consultant. Would you do it? Well, yes. I became the chairman.
1963, the school started. We did not insist that he speak English, which many of the schools at the time required.
Mrs. Loeb and Mrs. Cox and a number of others started our creche program.
Creche is actually a French word meaning manger. In France, a number of programs for infants are called creche. And the creche program here was not really for infants, but it was a child's first school experience. And it started almost as an emergency type babysitting program. And so the creche started where parents could come just for a couple of hours, leave their child, and know that the child was well cared for. It also was an opportunity for them to meet people, not only Americans, but also maybe people from their own country. So we would try to arrange it so that if a Turkish family had a child in the creche, maybe to have another Turkish family come on that same day.
I am French. I married an American. And a few years later, Justine, our daughter, was born. I did not know anybody around. And by the time my daughter was 1, the winter was starting, and I thought, that child needs to see other children and run around, and I need to meet other mothers.
The children were here and the mothers were here, and many times the mothers would spend the morning, and they could intermingle with other mothers. It was a place for them to come and feel comfortable, ask questions, and not feel awkward. So parents needed IPG. That's more like it.
From the Secretary General of the United Nations, I have followed with admiration the work of the International Playgroup and the creche for the children of international families in New York. The manner in which this dedicated group has coped with the many and often quite unique problems of the youngsters from 4 corners of the earth and most varied backgrounds is a source of gratification to all of us in the United Nations. It gives me great pleasure to extend to the International Playgroup my sincere best wishes for the success of its international art show and for the continued success of its vital work.
From New York City, they gave us encouragement. Money? No.
We had no money to pay rent for anything. What we were doing was basically borrowing space in churches around the city where we could hold classes because the churches didn't use that space during the week.
One of the ways to raise money for the school was the International Art Show.
What we did is we went to the various consulates and asked them if they had a young, up-and-coming artist from their home country who might like to show in New York.
There were artists from Africa, Upper Volta, Ouagadougou, places that I couldn't even spell the names, and beautiful pieces. And what was wonderful was that both the ambassadors and the consul generals could pick up this artwork and actually bring it into the country, and then we would put it up at the Union Carbide building. And we were up for about 2 weeks, and I was there every day, loved every minute of it.
We had a poster done every year. Posters were done by some of the greatest artists in the world. We had Miro, we had Chagall, Will Barnett, and I don't know exactly what's left of them, but we always looked and said, the ones that we didn't sell, that's our legacy. The benefit was quite revenue producing, and it kept us afloat.
We'd have well over 1,000 people opening night.
This was the event of the year. Opening night was a big gala. It was very elegant. It was lots of fun.
One of the jobs I had was try to recruit new directors. Betsy Newell was the first one I really hired.
I was director at the school for almost 25 years. The board was extremely supportive. And I think that is an important aspect of why we survived. They were determined that we would survive. I have so many wonderful memories about my time when I was here, and it was the people that made the biggest impression on me. And the people that I worked very closely with remain my dearest friends to this day. I invited Nancy Brown, who was running our creche program, to consider being the interim head. And she was, of course, a great success. And so when I came back, we were able to run the school together.
Nancy was exactly the way she is now. The first time I met her at the creche, and she shook my hand, I thought, this is exactly the type of person I would like my child to be with.
I found my days here, my weeks here, my years here, to be a constant learning experience, and I loved that. I was just so open to learning about new cultures, and we had children from countries that I didn't know existed or where they existed. We were very open to having parents come in and visit the classrooms. We noticed that there were a lot of parents staying here while their child was in a 2 or 2.5 hour program. We had a wonderful lady in the administration, Mrs. Shimada. She asked some of these women to be volunteers to help stuff envelopes. I thought it would be a good idea to provide more opportunities and to formalize it a little bit. Many parents jumped aboard, and it became a wonderful help for the school.
Parents were a critical aspect of the educational program.
I think we probably had an effect on the parents as much as we did on the children. That makes this a smaller world.
It's really quite an accomplishment, considering that we just started in someone's apartment.
Whoever has been the director of IPS, and I feel very fortunate to be part of this legacy of amazing women, stayed true to the learning through play philosophy. Play-based learning is recognizing that children learn better when they're relaxed and they're having fun. And actually, we all learn better when we're relaxed and having fun. Giving children an opportunity to discover things on their own or put things out in a classroom so that they will discover things on their own helps children to want to learn about something. The whole idea about flags and wanting to learn about your heritage. Most 3-year-olds are not thinking about, oh, where did my grandparents come from? But because here at IPS, children are learning about the other countries that their friends have come from, because maybe their friends don't speak English, or maybe their friends bring sushi for lunch, that makes them curious about who they are and where they've come from.
Play-based curriculum, especially with young children, helps them to develop their social skills. It allows for creativity. It allows for them to teach each other and for teachers to act as facilitators as opposed to constantly being the ones that are guiding and telling what to do. The goal is to have every language, every culture, every person appreciated and valued, and at the same time feel excited about coming to school and excited about learning.
When I listen to educational futurists as to what qualities are going to be needed to be a successful person looking for a job, let's say in 2028, a lot of those characteristics are things that we value in early childhood programs. Things like thinking outside of the box, a curiosity, acceptance of other people, being able to work in a group.
There you go, just like that.
Hello.
Hello.
It's never kissed the turtle.
Looks like the dirt, right? And you could look at him and you could say, hello, Froggy, if you want.
The program here is different than you would find at other nursery schools around town. And there's a big emphasis on appreciating differences.
Black hands, white hands, yellow and brown, all together built this town.
We are all alike and we are all different. Some of us look like our moms and dads. Some of us look different from our mom and dads.
What drew us to the school was the diversity of the school. We're a family with 4 boys. We're a non-traditional family. We were looking for an environment that would be accepting of our children and of our family, and we found that here at the International Preschools.
And our daughter, who's 24, attended. She has cerebral palsy, and she's very physically impaired and somewhat intellectually impaired. But I had an idea that if she could go to IPS, that it would set the stage for all of her schooling. And I thought that even though Helen couldn't walk and she didn't talk very well, that at IPS she wouldn't stick out. And it worked. She had a wonderful, wonderful experience here.
The most important thing you can do is meet the needs of every kid in your room. And I think that if you do that, then you are as successful as you can be, but that you have to constantly be willing to learn and change.
To stay the same, you have to keep moving forward because the world changes.
IPS has a number of specialty teachers who travel to the locations and supplement the day-to-day activity in the classroom.
Usually in preschool format, everything is repetitive and structured so that child feels confident. When the specialty teacher comes in, we're the exciting thing for the week. And Monday is Mr. Doug in music, Tuesday Miss Peggy in movement, Wednesday is iPads. And it's exciting for them to looking forward to something different that will take them out of the classroom or will be implemented into the classroom.
One thing that I thought was very important was having an art program. So we have a mixed media specialist who comes in and does clay work with the children, and her comfort level is so much greater than if you just said to the teachers, all right, here's some clay, do things with it.
Finn and Lucia, come on up. Finn, do you want magic wand or fairy wand?
Magic wand.
Okay, but don't use it for real.
Why?
It's loaded with magic.
iPads is like, it's not even the future anymore. It's technology right now, and I have children in my class that use an iPad better than I do.
Once the iPad and just touchscreen itself came out, I really saw the opportunity for young children to enhance their language skills and just enhance any academics that they might not be interested in another genre or form.
An iPad is a multi-sensory device, and preschool is a multi-sensory experience. Each child gets 10 minutes in the iPad center. It's 6 children at a time, so you'd be surprised how they're talking to each other and sharing ideas and looking at what their friend is doing. It's very social, it's very interactive, and in that 10 minutes, they're really learning how to maneuver the iPad, how to open up more apps, how to take themselves to a new level and challenge themselves.
My favorite app is, what is it called? Toga Boga Monster. Like you feed the monsters and one doesn't like the broccoli and it does that. My favorite part is the block area because there's blocks.
I think when we as parents ask them, what did you do today? It always sounds like they just had fun. Behind the scenes, each of those activities is somehow developing a skill.
Upon the first meeting, I found the board to be a very well-organized group of people, very thoughtful group of people. But what I really found interesting was they had all been connected to the school for decades. And it was just really intriguing to me as to why do these people stay so connected to their kids' preschool? It's a preschool. The answer is community.
I've been involved with International Preschools since not terribly long after it was founded. I first got involved in 1966, and I think it's fair to say that having been involved with IPS for the summer, we fell in love with it.
I came over 40 years ago, first as a parent, and then a volunteer, later as a teacher, and then I was the director of the school.
I've been with the school for many, many years. My daughter went here, and then my grandchildren came here. I want my children, or I certainly wanted Nina, to see that there's another part of the world, not just New York City and the children that they played with in the park.
It all started with David Bernstein, who's a trustee of the school, and when my husband and I had our son 27 years ago, David said to us the only school for them to go to is IPS.
The International Playgroup was formed because a group of New Yorkers said we need a place for these women to come with their young children to start to create their own community.
It's just so amazing to think that we were grinding things out on the purple mimeograph sheets when I first came here.
I can't believe it got here so fast, and that I've been here for half of it. That's pretty amazing.
I always say this to my families that are new. Look to your left and your right, because you're going to have at least 2 or 3 best friends for the rest of your life in this group.
To tell you that this is the best school in the world, yes, I will tell you, and I believe in it.
And I have to believe that if 5,000 kids have gone through this school with that experience, that exposure to people from other nations, that they have a different view of the world.
I don't know that there's any nursery school that as actively and aggressively promotes the internationalism as IPS does.
I think when you hear the title, the International Preschools, it's tempting to think that the international aspect is just something that we do. But in fact, international isn't what we do, it's who we are.
That one thread continues to weave through IPS 50 years later.